So, welcome back to episode 2 of making a UI for the Melt API using Lovable. So, in the first episode, or the second episode, which is what I actually released first, is that I kind of showed me building a UI around the Melt API, which is an API that I built and released, and that API is allows you to be able to have one API for being able to modify and manipulate and provision different type of phone systems. So I really wanted to show people how to use this API because the kind of the trick here, if you're going to build an API and try and monetize that API, which is what I do with the Melt API, you need to show people how to actually use it. So that's what I'm doing here, and I decided to use Lovable. So I wasn't really thinking about shooting a series around this. I just kind of pressed record and started recording. So I realized afterwards that hey, I think this makes sense to be a series. But once I did that, I needed to kind of I needed to go back and kind of do some things to kind of show you how I got to where I was in episode 2. So this is kind of like looking back, like in some type of series, and they do a look back. This is kind of the look back, and it's kind of interesting what I learned when trying to go back and produce kind of the first episode of this. In a traditional type of software development platform, I would just basically start a new project and then kind of show you how I got to where I was in episode 2. But this is a little different. So let's kind of get into it, and I think you'll get what I'm saying here. So so this is the UI that you saw in episode 2, and if you look at the very top here, you can just be like me and just kind of like scroll up. So this is what I prompted uh, originally. So in preparing for this video, I was like, let me just take this prompt and redo it and see what happens. And and it didn't do what I expected. I thought that it would create something similar to what I have. Actually, I thought it would create the same thing. But nope, it created this UI, it created this UI. But it makes sense. What these tools are doing are using reasoning models to take the prompt you have and reason based on the information it has in that prompt to build something. And so it's just like me and you, is that if you ask us a question on the Monday, and we'll come up with an answer for you. If you ask us something on Friday, same question, maybe the answer is kind of the same, but the derivative of it may be a little different, right? So it may be just a little bit of a different version of what you said originally. So that's what these reasoning engines do. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that same prompt that I used before to generate another UI, just to kind of show you what I mean by that. And I'm just going to walk you around the Lovable interface, and that's another thing that I didn't do in episode 2, because I was just kind of so geeked about like building something in Lovable that I kind of didn't focus on that. So let's just jump into it really quickly. So inside of Lovable, you can create multiple projects. I'm going to every time, and the way you create multiple projects, at least the way I found to create multiple projects, is that I will just give it a prompt, and then it will create a project around it. All right, so let's go ahead and give it the same prompt I used before, and let's see how it does. So it's thinking. While it's thinking, I will just walk through the interface. So this little button here allows you to view the history of everything that it's done. In this case, it hasn't done anything yet, but when it does, it'll show what actions it actually did. Uh, Here will you know hide the sidebar so you get more screen space to look at what was being built. You can also put in code mode, and you can actually see the actual files that are actually being built here. This button here allows you to look at your application in different form factors. So you can look at it in tablet mode, inside of a mobile device mode. So kind of cool to be able to see what your app looks like in different modes. Here is this forward slash here. It's kind of weird just sitting here, but this acts as like a browser right inside of Lovable. So the forward slash here just means the home page you're seeing, or you can navigate to other pages by putting in the name of the page here. If you hit this button here, this will show a preview of the app, and then this is a refresh here. You can invite people to the project. So if you wanted to invite other people to build with you, you can. If you wanted to, manage and configure Superbase, we'll talk more about Superbase in later episodes. But I look at it as an active database, and I'll get more into that in a little bit versus a passive database where it just stores data. It does more than just that. You also can sync your project to GitHub. So you can. This is one of the things I like about Lovable. You can store the project or sync it to GitHub. You can make changes in GitHub using Visual Studio, whatever tool you love to use as your IDE, and then those changes will be reflected inside of Lovable. And then if you wanted to use the publishing capability of Lovable to publish your app so that end users can use it, you can click the publish button there. For me, most of the things I'm doing is actually I sync my code with GitHub, and then I build a Docker image of the application and I deploy it on Kubernetes. There's a number of different reasons why I do that. I'll get into that later on. So let's go see how this is building out. Okay, it tells me the design concept. Now let me generate the professional hero image and create the main MeltAPI interface components. So it just went through and kind of told me what the design concept is. It's telling me what edits is made. So it's just going through and making the necessary modifications and writing code in order to build based on the prompt that we gave it. So we'll give it a little bit to build here, and then we'll talk through what was built, check it out, and go on from there. All right, so I got the little note, and this is what it built for me. So this is a lot different than what was built originally. Really, I want something that can manipulate my API collection. So something that allows people to actually work with the API. So maybe I need to be more explicit, so that way it can create something more like what I want. I don't know. For the first time I did it, it created something much more close to what I wanted. And again, it's based on it's a reasoning engine, so it it built things based on what it thought. So let's compare what was built before and what was built now. Um, so let me just do this. I'm actually just going to say, go back to dashboard, pull up the project that was built originally, and then I'm going to just get them to be side by side. So this is probably one of these times where I can hide the dashboard. Actually, here, this is actually probably a good time also just to go to the preview mode of it. And that'll be okay. So this, and then let me go to the preview mode of this project. And I did make some changes to this when it came back initially. So this isn't exactly the first thing it came up with, but it was closer. This in general. So, you know, this one kind of built a more of like a intro to the Melt API versus it being something that allows me to manipulate the API. Because that's really what I wanted. So it puts a hero screen, tells about it, and I guess that's okay, but that's not really what I wanted. So I think I need to be more explicit. So let's see. It's public API. So the one thing I also noticed with Lovable is that it gives you a framework, but like these things don't typically work. Now you need to usually go and then tell it what you want it to do. So so it gives you a framework of what the UI should look like, kind of lays out things, but then I need to go and specify the changes or the things I actually want this thing to do. So, let's see here. It doesn't. Yeah, none of these work. They just kind of show it. But the UI, it's okay, but it's not exactly what I wanted. But the point here was that I wanted to show that. Well, first of all, the whole point was that I wanted to show you like the beginning stages of using Lovable versus this picking up on episode 2 where I was. But you get the point. I gave it a prompt. It generated, a UI, and then from there I can actually prompt and have it add certain things to it, or I have it call my API. So check out episode 2 if you haven't seen it, and you'll see me actually modifying and prompting it to modify the actual UI to do certain things. And then I'm going to, in episode 3, we're going to continue down that path of modifying certain things and trying different prompts and having to do different things. But the end goal of this is that I want somebody to be able to say, hey, I want to use the Melt API. I want an example app of how to use the Melt API. And I want this app that I'm building, because we're going to continue forward with the one here over to the right, modifying it based on my prompts. So one other thing I'm gonna show here really quickly, back to the app this one I just built here before we close out episode 1, is that you can actually sync your project with GitHub. So So it says sync your project two-way with GitHub to collaborate at source. So I'm going to say connect to GitHub, and I'm going to say connect project. I'm going to pick my name. This will move the only instance of this repository to your GitHub organization. There's no backup if you delete it there, and there's no way to import the repository back into Lovable. Okay, so I'm going to do transfer anyway, and this should allow me to be able to now, make modifications inside of GitHub and inside of Lovable. So, like, the other cool thing here is that now that it's connected, I can go and say edit in VS Code. When I actually did this before, I was like, oh, it's gonna pop over my VS Code editor, but no, there's actually a VS Code, a web-based version of VS Code that shows up on GitHub Dev, which I never used this before, and you can make changes here and it'll reflect. So a lot of times I will go into the main file here. Let's see, under pages and index here. And I'll make changes here because it's just much easier sometimes versus telling it a prompt to make some change to the content. I will just go in and make the content changes myself. So I'm just going to make a silly change here. Provides comprehensive API collections for PVX provisioning. I'm just going to just say that. Get started with your personal platform today. So we'll just change that there. Automatically auto saves. Very much like, in the traditional Visual Studio, I'm going to stage these changes, update it, text, and we're going to commit and push. All right. So what you're going to see here is that on the Lovable UI here, you can see that it says updated text. So it actually will take the GitHub changes and actually show it in your prompt history. And then from there, I should be able to... okay, there it goes. I should be able to see my change. I probably need to refresh it. Actually, I don't even know where I made this change at to be able to refresh it. Let's see, where was this change here? Oh, this is just a meta. This is just the description of the content of the actual page. This is a meta description here. So I guess if I go look at the code I guess, and I go and look at the pages here and go there, I can see that this was actually changed here. Oh, that's the title, but here goes the description. Sorry. So you can see it was changed there. So my main point here is that you can make changes. You can connect it to GitHub, make changes in your Visual Studio, and it will show up in Lovable. And you make changes in Lovable, it'll show up in GitHub. So it has full two-way sync, which is kind of cool if you want to have if you want to either have two different workflows of how you do development, or you have other people on the team that are working on the project that are not fans of using Lovable. They're more kind of traditional coders, have a traditional workflow. They can pull this up in GitHub and make changes as well, and things will be synced between both development teams. So that is a quick intro into how do you use Lovable to start building a UI, in particular, building a UI wrapped around a API, and then we have to start refining it. So in future episodes, we'll be refining it and actually showing how you connect it up to your API. Okay. All right. It's a wrap. So talk to y'all soon.